everybody. Welcome to another webinar here focused on the waste industry. My name's Josh Gregory. If you've never been here before, I lead our education team. So what that means for all of you is that my team is here to help bring you all of these new industries, this new info, help you kind of decide if this is something you're interested in and something you want to pursue to help you kind of accelerate your journey into these industries, to answer your questions and give you that foundation so that if it is something that's for you, you can keep moving forward and run full speed ahead. Now, if you haven't been here before, or if you're watching for the first time, the way that these will work is we're going to go over some content, some things that we want to talk through and explain when it comes to this industry. And it'll be a little bit different every week. And then at the end of it, if anyone does have any questions, we'll go over any of those questions. You can ask them directly to us in the Q&A button at the bottom of the window is best. And we'll also go over some upcoming events at the end too. So as we're going through this, if anyone has any questions, feel free to send them in directly here, or you can always reach out to us afterwards, sending in your questions or whatever specifics you want to talk through at info@routeconsultant.com. Now, getting into the meat of today. So last week, if you were on or if you watched, we talked about how to handle the challenges when things don't go to plan. So how to build and structure contingencies into your business so that you have those backup plans to handle all of the various problems that can come up in any of these types of industries. But today we're looking at the opposite side of things. So how do you grow and make more revenue and add more territory and continue on that upswing in the good times? And so obviously to talk through that, we have brought Tommy back on to help with his decades of experience in this industry, and he's done plenty of growing and adding territory over the years in the different business spaces. So Tommy, I see you there. Why don't you go ahead and say hello to everybody?
Hey, everyone.
All right. So as we often do when we're talking about these, we like, as far as the waste industry, it really comes down to segmenting across the different parts of waste and really thinking about how you grow revenue and grow territory in each of the different segments. So let's start with kind of residential areas, that segment of the industry. And I think one of the things that's most common that people most often think about in this segment is, picking up trash from an actual city. And we've hit on that before, that there are actually contracts that you'll work through with the city and that you can potentially win. But really, let's spend today at the beginning talking through the process of actually applying for and getting on the list to win one of those bids, and take us through it as if you're a new contractor starting a new business and you've never done this before, never done a bid at all. So who do you talk to? How do you get that process started, and what does it look like?
Yeah, so in municipal bids, they're similar regardless of the city, but they're also different. And so and so much of that depends on the size. But the first thing you have to do is to get on the bid list. Almost every city has a list. They bid out a lot of things. It's not just waste. And so it's making sure you get on their bid list and finding out what that process is. Most of them have some type of procurement or purchasing department, which is where you would start. But the waste industry falls under the public works sector. So it's the same place that does streets and things of that sort. So if you're not getting much success, from a procurement department or purchasing department, find the public works department, who's running the public works department, and go, just go there. And the other thing you may find is that, especially the larger the city gets, they may have several different topics or areas within the waste industry that they may get proposals on from, all types of various things. And I would tell you, it's okay to get on anything associated with waste, although it may not be something, it could be something hazardous related. It could be something that you're not going to touch or you're not equipped to touch. But what that does is that just gets you in the process. They're accustomed to sending them to you. Go ahead and get them. Um, and so, what do you do once you get on the bid list and you know that's happened? And so I'll kind of go through a couple of phases, some things that are good to do once you get on the list. One would be get a copy of their current agreement, because what that's going to do, look over it. And again, all of this is public record, so it's shouldn't be any problem to get. Most people, hey, here it is. um, and so you get that, and what that does is that tells you a little bit. It will tell you a lot about the expectations, what the current contractor is required to do, those types of things. It will also give you pricing. It will tell you when price increases are there. It will tell you how they look at, if there's an issue, how those get addressed, those types of things. And so I would tell you that, it's important to get that. It gives you a lot of information. And then the other, between the time frame, even if it's 2 years out before that opportunity is ever going to come up, touch base with whoever's overseeing that contract. Even though they may not be self-performing, they probably have somebody that's a solid waste director or some sort of similar title. And you get there and you don't want the first time for you to meet them to be at a bid opening or a pre-bid conference or something of that sort. And so you just walk in, tell them who you are, meet them, find out what some of their pain points are. Because I can tell you, nobody, if they contract out, nobody who works for that city wants to have massive failures in waste. You know, they will get a few phone calls with potholes. They will get everybody calling if their garbage doesn't get picked up. I mean, that's just the way it is. So they want to make sure. So hey, and as you build a rapport with those people, they'll let you know that. Kind of, hey, we had this issue or this issue, or this is what's important. And again, that just allows you to prep for the bid itself.
Got it. Now, you said kind of, at the beginning, get this information. Can you find most of it online, or does it actually require you to kind of go to a city hall and go in person?
It really depends on the city. Some of them, a lot of them are online, but it may be tough to dig through their websites because some of their websites are not that great. So sometimes it's just, hey, going down there a whole lot of times that is maybe easier to get. And then if we kind of walk through what the bid process typically is in these. And so what typically happens is they send out the bid documents. It tells you all the requirements, but it is very common for them to also have like a pre-bid conference where people are able to come in, they ask questions, and then what they do, anything that needs to be clarified, they will send back, send out. So everybody's bidding on the same thing, the same type of questions. Some may not have a pre-bid conference where people actually get together. You're not required to be there to bid. It's a good idea because you'll get an idea of who you're going to be competing against. But some of them may say, you have this date to send in any questions or clarifications, but then everybody that's on that bid list is going to get those clarifications. And then the bids are sealed. Most of the time, there is a bid opening where they go in and all they do is read whatever the numbers page is. And then at that point, low bid does not automatically mean that's who gets the work. So, that's why having that rapport on the front end and understanding is important. All things equal, they have some requirements to go with, with low bid, but it is the most complete bid is really how most of those read. So if you're higher, but they feel yours is more complete, you can get that. I've won bids before with municipalities where I was the highest bidder. So it does happen.
Okay. Now, if you're coming in, like if you had the contract on the previous cycle, do you have any kind of priority for the next bid?
No, you really don't. They're going to go through. However, most of these agreements have renewal terms where they, in the original, it'll say, it will be renewed, for 1 year periods up to, three times, five times, whatever it may be. So if you have it and you're not having issues, most of them will avoid, you know, going back out because it is a lot of work, not only for you to offer the proposal, but for them to go through and evaluate. And then, they don't want to have to switch if they don't have to.
Got it. Okay. Gotcha. Now, let's say there's a city that's not currently operating under one of these contracts. Can they swap later and kind of take the waste in an area? How does that work?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. Most cities that are incorporated have have some way of picking up the waste in their incorporated areas. But a lot of those are also, I mean, there's constant budget pressures. And so, as they go through and they're evaluating and looking at budgets, it's very possible that they could go from insourcing to outsourcing, where they do go to do that. So even if the city is currently self-performing, but it's in an area that, geographically, if you've said you'd be interested in, make the connections, build the rapport. But I will tell you one thing: the guy that is running the waste department, it may not be the person you want to convince to outsource, because chances are you'd be taking that person's job.
Hmm. Gotcha. That is a good tip. Yeah, because you don't want to come in pitching like, "Hey, I'm going to do twice as good as you. Who else should I talk to convince the city
Exactly.
to replace you?"
Exactly.
Oh man. Okay, so I think that kind of covers the cities that are actually under municipality contracts, but I know there's a lot of residential stops that are not under any kind of, overarching city contract. So for those, when you're talking about adding additional houses and trying to pick up those, have you seen, what are the best ways you found to reach those and add them to your business?
Yeah, and so most of these do not have any type of term agreement of any sort. So I would tell you that this is a great opportunity for you to get your employees involved. They are going in the areas where you want to grow. If you're driving by a house and not picking it up, you add that, the amount of time to actually pick it up is minimal. And so I would encourage you in residential on the subscription side to make sure you get your employees involved. Give them cards of some sort, pay them some type of fee when they get somebody, and to be able to do it. So that's a great way to know, because they're going to know if somebody's moving out. I mean, there's a good chance they're going to know if somebody's moving out, a new house is being built, if it's in, not a subdivision type setting, those types of things. A couple other things I would tell you is, in new developments, be first. Get somebody early on, as the houses are being built, know who's going in, find out, get it, because if you get one of the first one, two, or three people that move into that neighborhood, chances are you're going to get the majority of that neighborhood. Because again, people, if they know somebody's already there, they're going to ask somebody, or they're going to see your truck, and they're going to say, "Oh yeah, I use so and so." So that is key, because you see that all the time. The whatever company gets the first few will get by far the majority of the neighborhood.
Yeah, perfect. And that's a great tip. Yeah, because it's going to be really crucial to be one of the first movers in some of these types of areas if you want to claim a lot of that residential market there. Okay, so that's it on the residential side. I think there's a couple of things that'll tie back to it that we'll talk about in a little bit. But how do things work a little bit differently when we're talking commercial and business to business?
Yeah, so very different in that, again, it's business to business, and those customers or potential customers are going to have term agreements. And so anywhere from 1 to 3 year term. They have evergreen clauses, so they will roll over if certain things don't happen. And so it is so much of that is gathering that information. The other side of that, most companies in the commercial sector have sales reps. So they have people out there, pounding the streets, finding out what's going on and gathering that data on when agreements are up and when to go back in and not be too late.
Yeah, so I assume you end up with a big old spreadsheet of when a bunch of contracts are coming to term, and 3 months out at least, you're calling and trying to set up the next one.
Right. Yeah. So you do it, and the great thing about it is people talk about productivity in sales as well, but somebody doing cold calls. So this person has to be comfortable doing lots of cold calls because they can make 30, 40 calls a day because again, every door is a potential customer. So you're never walking in somewhere that they don't have waste and they've got to figure out a way to get rid of.
Yeah, yeah, and you have to kind of have that nose to the ground, like always running, trying to find that next opportunity, and I think that makes sense that it has to be kind of a part of your when depending on how aggressive you want to be for growth.
Right.
Now, are there any organizations you join here or people you should talk to here? I know you're talking about the people you need to connect with at the municipal side. Is there anything like that? Any kind of groups or larger buckets you can tie into to get more of this information on the commercial side?
Well, a big thing in the commercial, again, is you want your name out. How do you get your name out?
Yeah.
I tell folks your trucks are a rolling billboard. So, making sure somebody can see your truck and know that that's something to do is very important. But the other side of that is also making sure that you join organizations, social club, and I tell folks a great thing to do is the chamber. I mean, chamber is businesses. You go there, but your involvement is really in their social, their happy hours, their things of that sort, where you're able to go in and people, just see your name tag, you know, go around and do that. So, and don't forget the small towns that have chambers as well. I mean, that's a great way. They're much more intimate and give you a better chance to get your name out.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the name of the game for a lot of this is where do I need to be? Who do I need to meet so that my name's out there and that when they're thinking about these things, when inevitably someone at all of these businesses, all of these organizations has to think about waste at some point, that I want my name to be the one they think of.
Hey, let me throw out one other thing on commercial.
Yeah.
Is the other, if there are bids with municipalities and states on the commercial side as well.
Okay.
So their office buildings, have waste as well. So, make sure you get on the bid list for those as well.
Got it. Yeah, that's so some of those same types of people and same types of conversations that you had on the residential side with the city are worth having, even if you're on the commercial side as well. Perfect. So let's talk about this last segment. So the industrial side of things. Now, when people think of industrial, a lot of them, you kind of think of a lot of them as temporary, that they're project based. There's a start and an end that you're helping with. So how would you go about finding those consistently if they're kind of sporadic in terms of where they're happening and when?
Yeah, I would tell you most of those are construction. And so how you find out is you build a rapport with contractors. I mean, that's it. You have contractors that focus on commercial, building. You have contractors that focus on residential. Both of them use these all the time. So to get into that market, it is really building that rapport. And there's lots of ways to do it. I mean, you go to the job site and you find out who the foreman or supervisor or manager, whatever they call it, of that site is. Even if you don't get it that time, when that job's over, he's going to another site somewhere.
Hmm.
Uh, but it is at their main offices, being able to do that build those rapport with those contractors. That is the best way to get that information.
Got it. And that's probably one of the best ways to start to have that vertical integration of, if you know where all the construction is happening and you're already doing waste there, then you also know that that's where they're building new buildings. And I'm ready with those clients as soon as they're moving in, that I'm making sure they have my contact info because I'm already there. I will be the first mover because I've been there since before the house was there.
Exactly.
Yeah, perfect. And that, I think that starts to make a lot of sense in terms of how you start to integrate with this pipeline of, if it makes sense to have different parts of the waste industry as part of your own portfolio. And it's not just that you grow in one or two segments, they kind of all work together to find ways that they all grow and benefit from each other. Because like you said, at the end of the day, it's getting your name out. And, we think about this, the waste industry and all these different segments, but in a lot of ways, people are just thinking of trash as trash. And so if your name's involved in one conversation, it might be involved in multiple. So make sure that you're ready to service all of it.
Right.
Now, we talked about how there's a lot of these project-based ones on the industrial side, but are there any that are really consistent that you see, or do you ever see those on the industrial side?
Yeah, and those really fall into like three categories. What you have, the commercial side, you're looking at the big box retailers and the large grocery stores. I mean, it is those large volume locations, they have a lot of volume. And so typically they have some type of compactor on site where they do that. And so those are going to be in those, in those geographic areas where those things exist. The other is apartment complexes, large apartment complexes. Some will have the commercial containers, but more and more you're seeing them put in compactors, the big compactors, and where they only have a couple of places. Again, they try to hide them, those types of things, so the residents don't see them, but you see that. And then the third is exactly what the LOB is called, which is industrial. And where you're going to find those are really in industrial parks and, industrial areas of a city, because rarely do you see a huge manufacturing plant in the middle of a commercial area. I mean, those seem to go together. The municipalities zone where those are together. And so almost all of those, when you go, they're huge buildings, they're industrial, they're manufacturing, and every one of those buildings are going to have these large containers, and many times multiple of these large containers.
Got it. So when you're talking about these large ones that are operating at, what we often think of as commercial locations, do they still do they have contracts? Like what types of interactions do you typically see there?
Yeah, those are going to have contracts just like the commercial. In the waste industry, when you get into the commercial and industrial, their term they use permanent business, perm business, and temp business, temporary business. And so, and that's basically one of the reasons that term is used is because it's ongoing, and so it's those, they call it permanent. Good chance once you get them, you can keep them for a long time if you do well. But it's that ongoing, every month, consistent revenue that comes in.
Got it. Okay. So those are the different segments. When we think about growth, is growth always good? Like, is new volume and new business always worth adding, or is there anything that you would kind of recommend thinking through before you just go adding any business you see? Like, is it always worth it, or are there any metrics you apply there?
Yeah, I would definitely say no. Not all business is good business, and the great thing about this industry is you set your boundaries, you set the geographic area you're going to cover, and so the great thing is you're not limited in your growth, but you have to be disciplined in doing that. If you have an opportunity to go 30 minutes away for one location, then you have to evaluate, can you build that to where you can build an entire route off of it. But if you're just going there for a few locations, then I'm going to tell you it's going to be very difficult to make money. And what you're going to do is you're going to put a strain on your entire operation. So you're not going to be profitable, and you're going to put strain on other operations. However, it's not unusual to see people create routes in pockets. So, you may be focusing in one area, but there may be an area 30 minutes away, but you can build an entire route. It's really about building density. In the waste business, time is money, and the time that truck is out there is, it's important to make sure you do that. So not all business is good business, but again, don't limit yourself to this is the only place I can go, because there will be other opportunities.
Yeah, and I'd imagine like what we were talking about earlier, if maybe you find out about a construction, like a new development, and maybe it's not a ton of business up front where you're just helping out that construction site, but it might be worth it to go out there knowing that if you can land that entire residential area once those houses are built, that it'll add a whole route. And so it's worth maybe a little bit of an inefficient stop to help those construction sites to make sure that you're there once those houses are built, so you can add them as residential stops later. So sometimes you might have to make that calculus too of, is my potential future profit worth it to have a couple of inefficient stops here and there?
Right. Yeah. It's that lost leader type scenario that retail uses all the time. Get this to get them in the door to buy the bigger stuff. Same thing, except here it's just about density.
Yeah. Perfect. Now, just a last question here before, if anybody has any questions, I'll open it up. But a lot of times we think of kind of waste as being early morning or, early afternoon at the latest. Is there ever any other kind of opportunity to operate later or even at night, picking up anything with these vehicles? Is there any kind of territory where you can kind of utilize the vehicles for over longer periods of time? Like, does that ever open up other revenue streams?
Well, the limit you have in the waste business is the disposal site operating hours.
Got it.
That's really it. Are there opportunities, a festival or, things of that sort where you can go in? Typically, those are extremely high, profit margins. You get somebody to go and take care of it. But, on an ongoing basis, the issue is if you have a full truck and it's sitting there until it gets to that disposal site, there's nothing you can, it's worthless to you. It's just sitting there. So,
you ever had it where you kept a load overnight? Is that even
yeah. I mean, that's happened before. Again, some of these festivals and things of that sort. And are there opportunities for you to do things? I would say in the bigger municipalities in the downtown area, there could be opportunities for you to basically go fill up a truck, get it full overnight and have somebody else come in and go dump it in the morning. I mean, there are opportunities along that you can look at. Again, on the residential and commercial side, it takes a while to fill up those trucks. So, if you have a big body truck, you can work for a while. So although the disposal site may not open until 7 o'clock, you could start at 2 o'clock and start working on getting that truck full so it's sitting there at 7.
Got it. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, because I'm just trying to think through, are there other times I can use the vehicles? And it sounds like there is. It's all about planning and understanding your available potential hours at those disposal sites. Perfect. So, I think that's really what I wanted to cover today. And I think the important thing that, you've mentioned a couple of times, it's your territory and your revenue to control and deciding what's the right ways for you to do so. But the biggest impacts on growing are, one, did I get my name out and did I get it to the right places and the right people? And then there's a lot of opportunities if you are operating across multiple lines of business in this industry, where residential, commercial, industrial, where one, being in multiple places means more people see you, more people know you, but two, there's a lot of ways that they can kind of have an exponential growth factor where they're working together to raise your business's profile in a bunch of different places and keeping you in the conversation in ways you might not always be there. So lots to think about there. I think there's a lot of growth opportunity in this space, regardless of if you're, in a municipal contract or not. There's a lot of ways that you can grow with individuals and with corporations. Perfect. So if anyone has any Q&A, you got about 30 seconds while I go over some quick event updates. So if you are still kind of trying to find out about this space, trying to learn more, obviously we're going to have these webinars here every week at this time. And so all of our previous ones are on YouTube, all of our future ones will still be here. We do have next Thursday in our office an open workshop. So if you're interested in coming in and learning, meeting the team, meeting Tommy, we will have that. It's free to attend. So if you're trying to learn more about the space, it is next Thursday. It's most of the day. So you can go to our website and register for free right now. And that is March 28th. So if you're on the fence and trying to learn more, that's the best place I'd kind of open the doors for you at our office here in Nashville. So hopefully we will see you next Thursday. Hopefully Tommy will as well. But other than that, I will go ahead and say, Tommy, thank you so much for being here, for providing your expertise and information.
Thanks. Enjoyed it.
And everybody else, thank you for being here. And hopefully we will see you next week on the webinar and next week in our offices. So thanks again. See ya.